Hi, YouTube. How are you doing today? Here in Belgium, it's a little bit hot today, so I have the fan right behind me, but I don't think you hear it. And if you do, my apologies. I cannot make this video without the fan on me. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the 5 best decks to hit Legend with on ladder in standards right now. What I did is I had a look at the Hearthstone replay stats. I have premium subscription, so I can see all the stats from, for example, Legend, like top 1K Legend, Legend overall, Diamond through Legend, Diamond 1 to 4, all that, etc. And I chose the decks I think are the best for you to hit Legend with, or if you are already in Legend, the best decks to climb even higher on that ladder. So let's have a quick look at Hearthstone replay. Here we go. So you can see I selected Diamond through Legend here. And you can see in tier 1, we have Pain Warlock, Zarimi Priest, Handbuff Paladin, Dragon Druid. And then in tier 2, there are actually a lot of decks in tier 2 to choose from. There is Pirate Shaman, Evolve Shaman, Corpsicle Death Knight, Insanity Warlock, Flood Paladin, Elemental Shaman, Pirate Demon Hunter, Elemental Mage, surprisingly, actually, after the nerf, Rainbow Death Knight, Highlander Druid, Concierge Druid, Secret Hunter, Rainbow Shaman, and Highlander Shaman. So you see the meta is actually quite balanced at the moment, and there is lots of viable decks out there that you can choose from. Not all of them, obviously, are good enough for a quick climb. If you just want to have fun, that's fine too. Maybe you just don't want to grind and you can just pick whatever you want. But if you do want to grind, if you do have that goal of getting to diamond, getting to legend, or if you're in legend, getting to top 1K, top 500, etc., I have a selection of 5 decks that I think will work pretty well for you, depending on what you face at your ranks, of course. So let's have a quick look. The first deck I have selected for you is Evolve Shaman. This deck is has been quite popular the past 2 days or since the expansion came out. Because of the Carefree Cookie is a very, very good addition to the deck. And also Wave of Nostalgia is very fun. I want to point out this is probably the worst card win rate wise in the deck. But I left it in there anyway because it's a very fun card. Because you evolve all your minions and your opponent minions into random legendary ones from the past, so you will feel very nostalgic seeing all those old minions from the past. But it can happen that your opponent just gets better minions than you do. Not all of the legendary minions are very good, so there is a little bit of risk in that. So basically, what you want to do is you want to go wide on the board and push some chip damage every turn if you can. And then you have the Thrall's Gift here for 1 mana that has Bloodlust. So for 5 mana, so for 1+5, for 6 mana, you can push a lot of extra damage if you have a wide board. So that is an important thing to keep in mind if you are trying to push for lethal, that you do have access to Bloodlust. So in the mulligan, I kind of would want to look for a 1-drop. So either the Growfin, the Patches, one of these two probably, into like a good 2-drop. The Cactus Cutter is nice to draw you a spell as well. The Needle Rock Totem, the Sigil, like all of the 2-drops are actually nice to keep in your mulligan. And then the Gorgonzormu on 3 is always good because it gives you a lot of time to upgrade your cheese and get a lot of big chunky minions in the mid game. So, and then of course the Wave of Nostalgia, fun, but also sometimes it's quite good if your opponent has like some very big minions on board that you can't really trade off easily. Just wave them away and hope that your minions are better than their minions. Voila, that's good. And also, because you go wide quite easily with this board, there are Sea Giants in here, which costs 1 less for each minion on the battlefield. So if you are in a board-based matchup, these are gonna come down quite easily in the early game, and not a lot of decks can deal with the 8/8s coming down early. So one last thing you want to maybe think about is the Carefree Cookie, which is a very, very good card in this deck because you are going to go wide on the board, but your minions are quite small. So it's not that easy to take trades sometimes. So, but when you play the cookie and you take trades after the cookie is on the board, your minions cannot die. So when you trade off a minion and it's supposed to die, instead of dying, it will transform into a minion that costs one more. So it's actually a nice way to buff your board while taking traits. And also, it means that if this is on the board, your opponent can actually not kill off any of your minions and has to deal with the cookie first if they can. But for example, if this is hidden behind a taunt, you need a spell to get through it. So that's not always very easy. But all in all, this is a very good deck. It's a lot of fun as well. So if you enjoy playing Shaman, if you enjoy playing board-based decks, this is definitely one for you. Okay, so moving on. The second deck I want to show you is Pain Warlock, because you saw earlier on the Hearthstone Replay website, this is actually the best deck in Tier 1 with a 56% win rate overall, which is like really, really strong. The deck is not that different from how it was before, so you probably already know how to play it. So in the early game, you just want to pressure your opponent with the big minions and take damage as much as you can. So you can cheat out the Imprisoned Horrors and the Molten Giants early too, and not many decks can deal with that. And then if you feel like it's getting a bit risky, you might die soon, you just play the Infernal. It sets your heroes' remaining health back to 15, and it's a 6/6 taunt on the body. So it's not very easy for a lot of decks to kill you after that. Plus, you already have probably developed a pretty strong board by the time you play this Infernal. So all in all, that's still very, very strong. This deck does well in for example, a bit slower matchups that can't always deal with all the pressure you are applying. It's not as good in like other board-based matchups, maybe because like Flood Paladin has a good way of clearing the board while developing their own one with the giants. Also, Evolve Shaman might be okay uh, against this deck because they also have the mountain giants that come down quite early on. But other than that, I think this is a very, very solid deck that will make you climb quickly because a lot of games actually end by turn 3, 4, 5. And even if you lose, you can just quickly just forget the loss and go again. You see here one card that I don't actually have in my collection is the Party Planner Vona, but it is played in the most popular decks on Hearthstone Replay, so I did want to show it to you. But I think in most matchups you probably don't need it. But if you do happen to play against more slow decks, value decks that have been able to deal with the early game, maybe this is a nice way to try and go into the longer game a little bit more. Then the Zilliax in this deck, the pylon module and the ticking module. So that means that all your other minions will get +1/+1, and the Zilliax get reduced for each friendly minion in play. So this is the best pick for board-based matchups still. Okay, next we have Dragon Druid. This is the deck I used to play when I was grinding to Legend this month. I was on a 10-star bonus, so after Diamond 5, I didn't have any extra bonus stars, so I had to go like star by star quite slowly. I played Dragon Druid starting on Diamond 5. I went to Legend with 20 wins and 5 losses only, so it was very, very good for me. I think the deck can do a little bit of everything. It can apply pressure in the early game if you have a good opening, but then in the mid to late game is where this deck really shines, right? And the good thing is that you have a lot of options available to ramp to that late game. And a lot of decks just don't have a way to come back quite easily after you've done that. So what you want to do early on is try to look for the gift wrap whelps, the splish splash whelps, because ramp, you kind of want to do ramp. And then like Desert Matron plus something else on 4 is really strong because you have that taunt to protect it. If you have the Puppet Master Dorian, you could go Matron and then just play the Dorian out because a lot of decks won't be able to deal with it. And then you have a guaranteed draw the next turn. Ideally with a follow-up Summer Flower Child that is like the Omega Nuts, but it's definitely doable. So think about that when you try to set up a Dorian early. The Doomkins are still in the list as well because you do want to ramp, but also if you want to bully your opponent a little bit, you play the Doomkin and you steal one of their mana crystals, so they actually have less things to do the turn after you. And well, you know how the deck works, I assume, so I don't need to spend too much time talking you through it. Just look for the whelps early on, look for all the ramp you can get, and then you have enough draw to get going and play all these all these late game things. Okay, so next we have Insanity Warlock. So this deck has made a little bit of a comeback the past few days. Because the Tide Pool Pupil actually lets you play crescendos even more. And you know, the crescendo, when it's buffed, it's such a good tool to like kill your opponent, but also deal with all of their board. And because of the effect of the pupil, you can make sure that when you have the pupil in hand, you just play a crescendo. You are now kind of encouraged to waste one because you are going to get another one from the pupil anyway. So you can just play even more crescendos. So in a lot of matchups right now, you probably won't need the fizzle, but there are some slower matchups still, like Highlander Warrior, Control Priest, maybe as well, where you do want that fizzle with some extra crescendos in it. Some extra encroaching insanities would be very good as well. Maybe even a pupil to just almost go infinite. Just keep going till you have lethal. In general, what you look for in the mulligan is the salesman, the party fiend, maybe the pupil. I'm not too sure on that. The baritone imp, obviously, because that's the best way to start buffing your fatigue damage. And like for example, if you have Party Fiend on one and you see Eat the Imp in your mulligan, you can consider keeping it because you can just kill off a 1/1 and draw 3 cards doing it. So that's pretty nice. In the board-based matchups, you want to keep the domino effect as well because this is a very good AoE that will take care of probably all of your opponent's board at some points. And well, always try to finale your trogs in the mid to late game because this is probably very easy lethal, especially if you can combo it with Crescendo. So you clear their whole board and then you launch the Gem Tosser, and all of the Gem Tosser's damage will go face. That is a GG easy lethal. And then last we have Rainbow Spell Decay. This deck is probably the big winner after the expansion came out because we already had a Rainbow Decay that was pretty solid, but with the addition of the Spell Schools and the Razzle Dazzler that got buffed recently, as was same with the buttons, this deck is really, really good right now on ladder. I think someone even hit rank 1 legend with this list or a similar list. So you have a lot of minions and stuff still. Like in the early game, you can go salesman into dreadhound handler, casualties. All these things are still here. But the difference from the previous Rainbow Decay is that we are also playing spell schools now. So you have Frost Strike for the Frost spell. You have Molten Magma for fire. You have Natural Talent for a nature spell. What else do we have? Do we have anything? Yeah, we have a shadow spell, Runes of Darkness. And all of these spell schools will buff your Razzle Dazzler. So for every spell school you played, the Razzle Dazzler will summon a random 5-cost minion. So by turn 6, 7, 8, like in the mid game, when you play the Razzle Dazzler, it will fill up your board with 5/5s, and that is a pretty nice way to win the game. But because I do love a little bit of random, but it's also just very strong. Then what we talk about is Ziliax is twin module and perfect module. So that means this Ziliax is going to heal you. It's going to take some traits. It will summon 2 6/5 rush Ziliaxes with lifesteal and divine shield. So just easy to heal back instantly on the spot if your opponent has some minions on the board. Anything else we need to talk about? Yeah, maybe Corpsicle. Just keep in mind that you can just keep playing this over and over as long as you have corpses. So what you can do is you can just weave in this 3 damage turn after turn to just try and push for lethal a little bit easier. So if you have this in hand, don't hesitate and just point it face. You will find the corpses again because there is a lot of minion generators in here. Also, a very important card in this list is Eliza Goreblade. Ideally, you just play this on 4 and trade it off on turn 5 if you can. And then for the rest of the game, your minions have +1 attack. So even your hero power will be a 2/1. The Ghoul's Knight minions, all of them will be 2/1s. So if your opponent doesn't have any minions on the board when you play this after Eliza, you summon 5 2/1 ghouls. So that means 10 damage guaranteed to the face. And if your opponent does have minions, it's a quite effective way of trading off. And also the buttons is a very nice way. Like if you have played your hand, you don't have much left, you play the buttons, you refill, you draw a spell of each spell school, and you have a lot of spell schools in the deck, and a lot of them are in duplicate. So there will always be some that you can draw. And that's kind of how you win the game. Like you apply pressure, you have the Razzle Dazzler as a nice finisher, the Gorgonzormu as well. You want to buff the cheese, you know how that works by now. And of course, Reska, because you have so many ways of killing off your minions. This will be on 0 mana quite quickly, and then you can just use it to steal one of your opponent's minions. And that's it for today, guys. I hope one of the decks is something you'd like to play. Good luck on your grind to legend or your grind in legend if you already got there this month. And I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.